I should know by now that I can never do a quick video, but I never learn. I always think, oh yeah, like this is just going to be a brief rundown. That was an hour later. So we've done part one. If you're still with me, congratulations and thank you. Like, seriously. There's going to be a lot of back and forths because, especially with Kate's bloodline and heritage, because I go back and forth with it just based on what I've been looking at and reading and on the day or whatever. So just please be patient with me as I just go through the posts that I've put out there and explain what I've been looking into. So I think now at this point where we are up to Frederick Bosch's work, and Frederick Bosch is an amazing person, and he just commented on what I think it was the Trump post of Frederick Trump, because he was talking about the heritage and the lineage of Frederick Drumpf, Drumphf, and the Palatine dynasty. I think that was what he was alluding to anyway, and he was pretty much saying, I think you need to look into World War II and the German take on World War II and the German history of World War II. And, I, at this point in my research regarding this, I know that around the time that communism and the Bolshevism was created by Churchill to, and I'm finding out I was a huge fan and student in a way of the Romanov family, and then I find out it's all of that history is these things that never made sense finally make sense by their assassination being a controlled assassination, and then the whole feudal monarchy system kind of falling and crumbling with World War II. Anyway, it's just all these fascinating parts. But what I've known is at this point that I've been shown through research and articles and other research by researchers online that Trotsky, Lenin, and Hitler and Stalin were all British assets trained in the roughly around the early 1900s in London, and that communism was a British construct that was approved by the Queen at the time, Queen Victoria, by, I think it was Cecil Rhodes, who was pushing it, which is, Rhodes Milner group, or the Round Table, which, the Bilderberg group, or committee, and the UN, the Club of Rome, all of that stuff, all of it, including all the works of Prince Philip and Prince Bernhard and things like that, is all a part of this. So the Pilgrim Society, which is the US-UK relations, and the establishment of the Fed, Council of Foreign Relations, CIA, FBI, all of that is all based on in this kind of this realm, right? And all I know at this point about World War II is that Hitler is sus, pretty much. And obviously, I personally, just through my own, I'm too much of a realist to believe that he died in a fire. The fact that they lit him up and the excuse was that they didn't want him to be paraded in the city and stuff like that. I just don't believe it one bit. Really, I don't believe it one bit. Because if he was an asset, and if he ever was a British asset, which I believe now he is, just through the work of Frederick Bosch that I've been reading and conversing with him about, if he was an asset, then there would have been an exit plan and an agreement. And he would have known exactly what was going to take place and what were the outcomes of World War II, including the Rome Treaty, including the creation of UN and the social, the systems theories and the frameworks that were being constructed through Germans, the education system that was going to be replicated, and then through Yale and through all the university systems, the secret societies, and these societies and these scholarships, like the Rhodes scholarships and all that stuff, the initiation of globalism through these scholarships and through this framework, this really complicated framework of education, and of reprogramming, basically, through our education system and development. So yeah, I didn't know. All I knew was that I think at that time that he was suspicious, that there was a possibility he was an asset, that I believed it. If Churchill had created communism, and there was definitely flat out evidence of Lenin and Trotsky being assets, because there's literally I've seen article excerpts about them being there in London and all this stuff, and there's work to look at and go, okay, yeah, I'm joining the dots here. Hitler, I was like, yeah, okay, but I haven't seen particular work that has really proven that any stronger than just pretty much a theory. And also, it kind of aligns with him just suspiciously dying. Do you know what I mean? Never really having proof that he was dead. And then the whole Argentina, but also Australia, USA, UK, so many, like that example I showed you before about that Peter guy, the Ukrainian SS. He fled to Canada, and there were many that fled to all these different countries under the monarchy, under the British monarchy, that were allowed and then promoted and enabled. Just amazing. And it was just a given, and I'll go through all of this, but so that was my kind of base knowledge at that point. And then I get this comment from Frederick saying you need to look into the history from a German standpoint as to what had actually taken place. And it was a 9-part thread that took me about 3 days over Christmas to digest and read. And I still haven't gotten through it all. I'm up to the Gendenluz case that created, the UN as a universal law, pretty much. That didn't just involve member states. So, and that was, again, one of the outcomes of the intentional outcomes of World War II, to create this global structure of control. Well, there were many different mechanisms and tactics used to control and to create globalism. When you think about it, if anyone has studied economics or business, like I did, we were taught globalization, and globalization really happened at the end of any war, because trade would open up after war. They would be indebted, these countries, and they would open themselves up to trade, to global trade, and that was a good thing. That was always a good thing. But when you think about it, this was only a concept made through World War II. And all of a sudden, globalism was a thing. And that was alongside the development of WEF and UN and all these international societies and the re-education system and the internationalization and the promotion of internationalization. The Commonwealth of Nations, that was when that was formed. And the collapse of the kind of monarchies around the world, except for the ones that could still be used as a means of controlling a certain region. For example, the British monarchy stayed alive because they could control their colonized countries through the Commonwealth. All colonization was that was an old structure that they were giving up for a new structure, but it was still under the same controls. So just restructuring, reconfiguration. So I look into this stuff with Frederick. Frederick's, I think it was his grandfather, died being shot in the back when the British took over Germany in the 1900s, before World War II. I think it was early 1900s. And he talks about it in this 9-part series. His grandfather was homesick. They had taken him as a prisoner of war to Bermuda. He came from a family that was high up, that was actually involved in these own theories proving this whole orchestration. And that his grandfather was shot in the back when he tried to escape. So he knows very well things that, as well, we don't know. He now lives in Netherlands. And the things that I'm saying, the reason why he knows things that we don't know, there are things that are beyond articles that are sometimes a little bit of insider information as to, marriage breakdowns, for, let's say, between Prince Bernhard and his wife, the Queen of Netherlands, that was discussed, and all these things that he has made these connections and distinguished and addressed patterns, and has this critical thinking that is just so amazing to read and to, in a way, listen to, where he applies critical thinking of the Sunrise operation, basically the negotiations of Germany surrendering, which was at the Vatican by Karl Wolff, who was promoted with the Iron Cross by the last Grand Duke of the Hesse clan, which was Lord Mountbatten's uncle, and is also Prince Philip's uncle. Just all these connections, all these amazing things. So Karl Wolff did the negotiations, but for the benefit of Dulles, I've forgotten his first name, but the CIA operative who did Guatemala for the Central American juntas, and he wrote up the establishment of Czechoslovakia in 1918. This is how big this is. It's a CIA operation. As soon as CIA was pretty much, I think he's the father. Him and his brother are the fathers of CIA. Dulles and Foster. Is it Foster? Alan Foster. Dulles. I've forgotten his bloody first name. Anyway, he orchestrated many things during World War II. So I'm getting too far into it. So we start here. I'm going through his series, and he's talking about here the banking, the German banking system, the Bethmans and the Goldschmidts, B.H. Goldschmidt, who again is a part of the banking dynasty, they served all the great houses. That was the point of them. That's why they've had these old banks that served the royal family. In Britain, the Coutts Bank, that was a Goldschmidt bank. So they served the great houses. By the late 1900s, B.H. Gold, or 1800s, I can't remember. B.H. Goldschmidt was the consul to the Grand Duchy, or is it the Duchy? Look, I'm not great with that. Of Tuscany, and that is the Corsini family. They're linked to Leopold II, the Holy Emperor. Okay, it's a big family. It's a big Roman family. And that was the last. I think that was the last Grand Duchy of Tuscany, because that was when all these kind of like monarchies and these royal houses collapsed around circa World War II. And we go, and he talks about how there's I can't remember who Donner is, this guy Donner, but he's a part of this whole plan. And anyway, he's wanting to create a bank, and he goes through B.H. Goldschmidt. And this addresses as well, Goldschmidt married a Rothschild. And by the end of the war, when they're talking about when the Rothschilds collapsed in Germany, wasn't really, but let's say it is, right? They're talking about Maximilian Rothschild Goldschmidt, who was obviously the joining of the two houses, and he was the wealthiest individual in the German Empire by the end of the German Empire. And the story is he had to sell all these things and stuff like that at the war. I highly, highly doubt that, given his bloodlines, and the fact that they still exist, that they're still highly prominent. He could have just left to the UK. I mean, he would have known what was coming as well, because this was a complete orchestration. But anyway, this is a blood link to the Goldschmidts and the Rothschilds, meaning if Kate is under this family, which I'm sure she is, because there's a connection between the Middletons and the Goldschmidts through the Coutts Bank, that she is also interrelated and intermarried with the Rothschilds. I know as well that they're related to Camilla's brother Mark Shand. He, I think he married, was it Cleo Goldschmidt? But he's passed away now. But Camilla's family, who's the Stuart dynasty, also a part of Goldschmidt's. So Kate Middleton's maternal side, if this is all true and correct. And it's all just kind of like this interconnected, interrelated kind of situation. But Kate is not an ordinary person. She doesn't come from an ordinary family. If you're to go with the lies of the same thing that they said about Diana, which was, and Fergie's bankrupt. Can you believe Fergie from the Stuart dynasty is bankrupt? Come on, guys. Come on. She probably has money to lose because she's got plenty more to just always fall back on. What if she outranks the monarchy? What if she I mean, God knows. Honestly, God knows, like, what the rankings and the hierarchy actually is. But what if she outranks Prince Charles by bloodline, according to the Roman Empire? Like, these sorts of things are worth considering. Anyway, so Rothschild Goldschmidt is an interrelated couple, very, very wealthy, and that is Kate's background. So that's what I'm discussing here. Now, I haven't particularly gone into the World War II theories and the conclusions I've drawn, but it's very, 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 very interesting, but very dense, much more dense than even these discussions here. Much more work. My brain was fried like for 3 days straight, and then also like the mind fucks of just like trying to erase everything you've ever known, and looking at it a lot clearer, like a revelation, just constant revelations, but it's just so overwhelming at the same time, you know? It's almost like when Neo found out about the Matrix. That's what it was like. It was like, oh my God, okay. So this is me looking into. I might start from the back here. So Frederick, at the first stage of his post, was talking about early in the war how Walter Rathenau paused to reflect on the German future. In September 1914, he addressed a memorandum to Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg. Bethmann was a part of that banking dynasty, suggesting a unified mid-European market growing out of combined German, Austro-Hungarian and Franco-German customs union. So by 1914, they were trying to establish pretty much what we now consider the EU. That's what that seems to me. That's how I interpret it. That this was a part of how, for the crown, for the Roman Empire, they're trying to restructure. How can we control the Europe side of things under Germany without losing everything that we could lose? How about we try to sell this to them and see if it works, kind of thing. That's what I took from this information. And he talks about, here, this was really interesting in the book. He hopes for the addition of Switzerland. Hold on, let me read this from the beginning. Riedel, a high official of the Austrian Ministry of Commerce and early Mitteleuropa enthusiast. So Mitteleuropa meaning Middle Europe. This was an actual theory and concept that then was later used after the war as well, but it was just redefined and refined, shall we say. But this was the beginning of that framework and that strategy. Just back from a fortnight in Berlin, as usual, he has a complete plan for the future in his mind. Customs Union, Germany, Austria, Hungary. With intervening tariff, he hopes for the addition of Switzerland and Romania, and presupposes partition of Serbia, which is interesting because Romania had the German royalty come over. So the Grand Duke of Hesse, the uncle of Prince Philip and of Lord Mountbatten, the Grand Duke's other sister, so their aunt, was Queen Marie of Romania. So she was married into Romania. The royal family then came over. The German royal family became the Romanian royal family. So this is all a part of it, if you think about that the monarchy, they're using Germany, but through the monarchy and through that system, that feudal system of, the monarchy system of taking over certain countries and trying to control, without collapsing the monarchy and that system, trying to control these countries for Europe. So they're trying to see if this is going to work. Switzerland, Romania already, and then they're going to try for Serbia and see how it goes. But do you see how, obviously, somewhere in between World War I and World War II, this has failed. Maybe this was just an attempt or a try, or maybe it was a part of it. But this was the beginning of the stratagems that were put into place to survive World War II and what will be the globalisation of the world and the new global order, which came through with UN and all these different tools and frameworks. But they were already being looked into from the like 1914 through to 1930, early 1930. So that's really important to note. So my point was, there's a clear elephant in the room when it comes to the boss experimenting with a German feudal rule in Europe to take over Austro-Hungarian regime, starting with Romania and Switzerland. Then when the plan failed, the feudal system dispensed and USA was chosen, China bought. So that was just my thoughts, my initial thoughts. And by that, I mean implanting Hitler and launching World War II as a means of economic restructure to the US. So creating US as the new base of global currency, and, you know, the sun shines there. And that could have only been done through World War II. They first tried Germany becoming the world's financial system, it seems. Pilgrim Society was formed to form USA, But because around the same time, I think in the 1920s, early 1920s, that was when the CFR was formed. So this is 1914. They're trying this out. And then USA's Council of Foreign Relations is formed. And then, around the time the Fed, and then, this is all very close time frame that you've got to consider between World War I and World War II. And World War II seems to set USA up to be like this new way of getting a military control and a means of control like CIA involved, created, and everything else. That all seems to be happening through World War II. But why the German-British royal family? There is something I'm not seeing, something significant. There seems to be a very interesting point of bringing over the German family, the German royal family, to be the British royal family. Obviously, before all of this. But there just seems to be like these constant German ties. When you think of Trump, when you think of even Meghan Markle, when you think of Saxe-Gotha-Coburg or the Windsors, when you think of Prince Bernhard, which I'll get to in a moment, there are all these like massive ties with Germany and German bloodlines, and it's just very, very interesting. And there's something I'm not seeing in terms of that. But what I have gotten from this is that they were almost all Nazi sympathizers and are Nazi sympathizers. They let a lot of Nazis, including Prince Bernhard, escape conviction, especially in the Nuremberg trials, and allowed them to flee and then live very fruitful, enjoyable lives thereafter, even rewarded with intelligence spy agencies, integrated into CIA, and it wasn't just the scientists, it wasn't just Operation Matchbox and Operation Paperclip. There were many things involved here, and this also includes MI6 as well, and David Astor, who helped orchestrate the Second Boers War, and who helped orchestrate the end of World War II. MI6 and CIA seem to have been working together during before, during, and after World War II. David Astor is the great uncle-in-law of, believe it or not, Charles's new right-hand man, the guy from France, the diplomat, whatever you call it. He's married to an Astor, and they're all just related, and they all promote each other. So if you think that this is just old news and this isn't relevant, it is. It's very relevant. All of it's very, very relevant. Just because somebody has passed on and this is old news, it's important to understand the levels of control that are actually being played out. That's Hastings on Christmas. Now, I'm getting to the point where I find out through this 9-part series of Frederick, which I haven't shown you. Believe me, you'll be here for 3 days or maybe 5. That Prince Bernhard was actually, so there was a chemical company heavily involved with the Nazis called IG Farben. They were actually, I think the boss was convicted during the Nuremberg trials. IG Farben was actually created or founded by Dulles, the father of CIA, American. Before the war really hit, he gave out like $500 million worth of loans to Germans between World War I and World War II. He did a lot of investment moves in Germany. He had a lot of ties with Germans, Nazis and Germany. And he owned IG Farben. And there was intelligence, a spy network within IG Farben. And lo and behold, before Bernhard became a prince, he was intelligence within IG Farben. And then he became an SS officer. Now, he's also tied to a Lockheed Martin court case that he escaped conviction from. He was named in the Nuremberg trials, but he escaped conviction from that. And he used WWF, the Worldwide Fund or whatever, that panda-looking thing, the conservation charity that's co-founded by Prince Philip. So Prince Philip would also be involved in this and also receive that money. He used WWF to money launder the profits from the jet sales of Lockheed Martin, Nazi profits. I think it was Himmler involved. He used WWF to fund that money through. When that court case happened, they said, well, we have no evidence of those funds ever being received by Prince Bernhard. Therefore, he is not, we can't punish him. There's no court case. And so they cancelled it. But obviously it was a fixed court case, and he was protected. And they would have known, if they decided to show the evidence, that the funds were received through WWF. This is what Frederick Bosch was telling me. And so I find out that not only is Prince Bernhard, before he became a prince, and when he became a prince, the promise was, which seems to be a contractual agreement. I don't think it was love. I think it was a setup because of then what Prince Bernhard did thereafter and was doing with all the secret societies and the clubs of Rome and the WEF. He was really in charge of the environmental eugenics Club of Rome through to WEF with Maurice Strong and Prince Philip. And he said to be the head honcho. And when you realise his intelligence, then that makes a lot of sense that he was heading all of these things through Club 1001, Nature Club or Trust 1001, Club of Rome, etc., etc. So, he received these proceeds supposedly through WWF, also an SS officer, not just intelligence, but an SS officer, when he married the Queen. The promise for the actual Queen at the time, Wilhelmina, was that he would resign from his position at IG Farben. So he was still working at IG Farben. And then they hid the rest. Or they hid everything else. But that was what happened. And so then he resigned, he became prince, and then he just developed all these committees and infiltrations and worked basically as intelligence from there. He just had a higher position with higher authority and higher protection. Very easy to see. So if you're talking about process into WWF, which implicates Prince Philip, it's amazing that this sort of stuff, that this article is an issue, because obviously it's just a complete and utter trivialization of what's actually taken place. So Brother Rudolf Ilgner was director of Farben subsidiary Chemnico Inc. in New York City. The lawyers involved Sullivan and Cromwell, the company of the Dulles brothers. Wow. Max Ilgner directly mentioned Bernhard in the Nuremberg trials as one of his, I'm not even going to say that, Verbindungsmänner. Bernhard was also a member of the paramilitary of the NSDAP, SA, and the SS. During the time in Paris, he stayed with Alain Thieu, then married to Pavel de Kotzebue. Bernhard's mother, Armgard, was acquainted with the Kotzebue family. Alain became godmother of Princess Beatrix. Mother and then Queen Wilhelmina, according to Time, the richest woman on earth, vouched for the marriage under the pretext that Bernhard would resign at his former employer, who asked the spy to quit his intelligence work. I don't think intelligence ever quits, so I don't think that happened. But Bernhard formally complied. Sure he did. Bernhard always denied to have received the money. This is in regards to the Lockheed Martin case. The committee declared in their official statement that he had entered into these transactions far too lightly. Via a journalist, Bernhard posthumously told he actually did receive the money, but it was transferred to charity, his WWF. All right. I've done a huge post. This was a realization through this work, which I can really go into a bit more, but far out, it's dense. It's really, really dense. World War I and World War II was used by Rome to replace the feudal kind of monarchy system. That's why there was the death of the Romanovs. I'm not sure if that was a means of that they refused to go with the strategy, or that it was staged completely. I just don't know these days, to be honest with you. But, there's a collapse of all these different monarchies while being particularly active and ruling certain countries, especially in Europe. For international regional controls of the Rome Treaty, EU and Commonwealth, and the agenda for complete centralization in force. So really the Commonwealth and EU was established, and the Rome Treaty, or the Treaty of Rome, were all established after World War II as a response to World War II. The International Court of Justice that created the UN law was created for peace. All of these societies and scholarships and fellowships that were used to pretty much kind of like develop and infiltrate, unlike, spy networks or WEF, globalists and all that stuff, through all the universities like Yale and et cetera, and Oxford. That was all done afterward. The social engineering as well involved, I haven't got into yet, but that was done by, I shouldn't try to pronounce his name, Jackhe, Jackhe, who was a British asset, British-German asset, paid and sponsored by American Rockefeller, but he was a part of the Commonwealth Society, which obviously would need the King's approval, King George, with Einstein, and he was really about the whole Middle Europe and the whole kind of the structural engineering of how things will change, how systems will change thereafter when the war was over. But he was really instructed. He was already doing this before really the war even started. I think it was 1934. They got a chance, they got the monarchy or somebody to make effective or to give approval and permission for the asset Hitler to become a chancellor. And that was, of course, the beginnings of things, but it was all like strategized. And 1932, was it? I don't know if it's here, but 1932, Jack, he resigned. Hitler fired him after a meeting, but it's clear that they were both British assets, but they had two opposing assignments. One was for after the war, and really Jack couldn't be implicated. He had to represent peace. He had to represent what will be the future systems that will be promoted through Britain. Pilgrim Society, there are consistent tactics throughout the war that were used that just are like rinse and repeats. They did it also through Prince Bernhard's wife. I've forgotten her name, sorry. The Queen. They used a woman. She was having her own committees and her own platforms to speak during this time, and but it was quite religious and Christian, and the part of the globalisation which has been promoted through King Charles back when he was a prince, and Prince Philip in the early 1990s, was the interfaith business group or whatever else. So they were already trying to establish interfaith for the crown. This is a part of the globalisation tactic as well. They didn't want her involved with promoting peace through Christianity and through finding God and peace, because that goes against their reasons for the new systems that will come into play of interfaith, of a blending of globalization and internationalization of faith. And God, I've lost my train of thought again. yeah. I don't know why I was talking about it. I'm so sorry. There's just so much information. I think my mind just loses it at times. He and they blocked that from. Well, Prince Bernhard actually demanded her to stop, and they forced her to stop. Oh, this is what I remember now. He even threatened to take the kids. He threatened to, like, he was a real prick, a real royal prick, literally. And instead of all that happening, what they did was, there was basically a media coup in a way that basically told everyone that the woman that was pretty much her colleague and the one encouraging her and facilitating these speeches with her was literally like a witch doctor, literally like they did a rinse and repeat of Rasputin. Literally. These sort of tactics, when you see them, you notice the patterns, you're like, oh, okay, so this was actually an orchestration. This was actually a part of it. Okay. So there's these tactics that are just used over and over by the British. And there was always through the CIA as well, now that they had the CIA or dulls, they had the CIA, but they also had the MI6, but they had the Pilgrims. And there was always this kind of like back and forth sponsoring and funding of people like the Rockefellers, what's the other one? Carnegie helped with the framework, sponsored the framework or funded the framework for the start of that kind of like Middle Europe system and framework. I think the yuck theory framework that he was doing, he was sponsored as well through Carnegie. So already, like before World War II, really, these are all being played out, and this is meant to be like the other side, the opposition, Germany and UK and America working together to create what will be the future of the crown after the war, the globalisation of the world. So, yeah, agenda completes a centralization enforced by creating UN, British, German assets infiltrated the education system and the US, UK pilgrims and used societies to change our social structure and build on the globalist regime, be its universities like Yale. Hitler worked for Britain to bring the order about. It is as simple as that. And I realized that because when I realized that with Yuck and Hitler actually pretty much being assets, I realized that Hitler was definitely an asset if he was speaking to Yuck, because he was a known asset and worked for the government when he fled to UK, when he was fired or resigned in 1932 from Hitler himself in an office. It was to not implicate him in the war just before it all started. And he left to work and continue his work in UK. Without that permission, without that resignation or that firing, he would have been implicated in the war and being known as a Nazi. So he went over there. So whether or not that actual office event happened, that was the story that was played out. And you can see that confirmed for me that this was a whole strategy, and that Hitler was an asset with Yuck, and that they knew what was being played out even before the war, what would be played out, what would be implemented. So if you look here, so I won't go into it a lot, but Frederick goes into the interwar period between World War I and World War II. The establishment of IIE proved to be the first step in advocated international commitment. The LSRM sent an officer, But there's a whole, there's like work I can definitely send you links to, explains the fellowships, i.e. Rhodes Scholar, etc., and why they always tied organizations to the WEF post-World War II. This was the first effort towards globalization and social restructure. It also must be linked to the redefined education system, because the university system that was restructured came from Germany at the same time. Although Yak kept in contact with the new regime, he went to London and became general director of the new Commonwealth Society. Members Einstein, Kelsen, Verdross, and Butler, almost all Germans. I mean, yeah. How to control the colonies outside of EU control once the feudal system was replaced with the Rome Treaty. Commonwealth of Nations under the only surviving monarchy post-World War II, of course, with the UN membership thereafter to get us under globalist agenda, while the British royal family survived, which is clear. That's, of course, the marriage certificate or the approval from the Queen of Harry and Meghan. So you can see that basically that was a marriage to the Commonwealth and the disbandment of the Commonwealth. Yeah, because of the new risk structures that are coming into play, it makes sense that the Commonwealth will soon completely be disbanded, because there needs to be a complete centralization of control. Again, it seems to be like every time there's a world war, there's a new global restructure. So that's why I think I've joined those dots. The British monarchy and its societies control the Commonwealth. For the Crown, you must be an installation to help maintain its order. And this is why Charles is privatising and the Commonwealth is disbanding for the agenda, because Rome will amalgamate all regional controls into one. So the EU, the Commonwealth, all of it will be rolled into one. I'm sure of it. And I am concerned with us being now the target, the Western societies and civilization being the target of this new world war to amalgamate, because we have yet to really suffer as Europe did for World War II. So that's really quite a concern of mine. Oh, this is that article I was talking about. And this is why Crown asset Meghan Markle was installed to keep the monarchy alive with what will be the new global order once the monarchy and Commonwealth have disbanded, while Republic organisations and all media feeding Meghan narrative are controlled opposition. So this was that article back in, it says 2021, sorry. British monarchy near its endgame won't outlast Prince William. Expert says. Yeah, that was a joke. That post. At the same time, I was getting ads constantly through YouTube from Australian Defence Force, pretty much asking if I want to die a hero. That's lovely. Show me that there's going to be a new World War III and they need Australia to join in. Okay, so at this point, I was looking into Trump's lineage, Palatine, Germany, Trump and Meghan Markle, Merkel, Pennsylvania Dutch, Palatine connections. Yeah, I'm still looking into all of this. Yeah, so that Donna, who wanted that money from Goldschmidt, was a part of the committee of three that investigated the Lockheed scandal of Prince Bernhard. So then you just, it's all just interrelated. I think this post was about, I believe Prince Bernhard is very high up in the order, or was very high up in the order. Netherlands become very, very involved with what happened thereafter, after World War II. And if he was planted in to become Prince Bernhard after being intelligence for CIA's IG Farben, and also an SS officer. I mean, he's a powerful weapon. And then he became Club of Rome, created WEF, etc., etc. Was involved in sales of Lockheed Martin during World War II. Like, you've got to think about how much this guy was capable of and what he actually did. NATO, three of NATO's directors were from the Netherlands. The Netherlands has provided three NATO Secretary Generals, before Rutte. It was Dirk Sticker and Joseph Lunds. The cyber headquarters of NATO is also established in The Hague. At the Dutch government, was it The Hague? Yeah, the Court Pond, a small waterfall coming from the wall in the pond. Above the waterfall, you can see the words "Et in Arcadia Ego," and this connects to a painting that was done for this, and the artist said the phrase is meant to be as a warning that even in Arcadia Paradise, death is always present. Like this small hole introduces death in The Hague. It's just very, there's lots of messages, lots of stories to think about. This was about, I've already done a video, as you know, about the Muslim Brotherhood being created when the Crown control of Egypt through the British Empire was done. That British intelligence created the Muslim Brotherhood. That was the first terrorist organization in the world. And that's why you get double, triple agents like Maxwell that were Mossad, MI6, CIA. You kind of, that's how you get the overlaps with those sorts of agents, because they're all pretty much a uni agency as much as our political parties are uni parties. And they're all really constructed and originating from the British. So that's what's interesting, that these all kind of come into play once a certain country's in control and being established. But it's always done through the British. So, Mossad obviously through Israel. But before that, there was the Muslim Brotherhood. And initially, these were means or a tactic used to infiltrate the country from within, creating civil destabilization. And it was to ensure that no nationalist would be in power, that there would be no nationalist leader taking over and regaining or reclaiming control of the country when it was newly taken over and controlled. So they wanted to make sure they had tight reins over the place. So the Muslim Brotherhood was created to dismantle and weaken the nation from within, and any nationalist leader or stronghold that they had. And they rinsed and repeated with Hamas Mossad and CIA and MI6 obviously aren't terrorist organizations. They're intelligence, but you can see how it's all interplayed with the British. But with that has come with these terrorist organizations like Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, all created for the same reasons, to create civil destabilization, to take away any nationalist leaders and strongholds. So if something's happened originally by British intelligence and then been repeated after a British country has been created called Israel, then the Hamas is definitely a part of that same mechanism, as much as Mossad is to MI6, and so is CIA. So it's just that sort of, that sort of understanding, I guess, of those patterns that you can see. So when people talk about, obviously, the Muslims being a problem in UK, the first thing you need to understand is you should be angry at the policy that's letting it happen. The reason why it's happening is because there's companies like Serco who profit from that monopolize the entire migration system of the hotels, of the refugee camps. They own all the prisons. So they have this whole market ready to exploit. So that's why the policy was open and has been open globally. If you identify the policy as global and not just national, then it's not a national problem, is it? It's a global problem. And the reason why that's happening is because of a global corporation profiting off this one market, or corporations profiting off this one market. And so that's the first point to make. And then the second point to make is any terrorist organization originally was constructed and originated from Britain through their intelligence. So that all being said, you need to understand these things to not be pointing the finger and blaming certain terrorist organizations or the fact that terrorism exists when your very country created that. And what else should I say? There are a lot of psyops at play, a lot of stagings at play to change policy. They are usually done by intelligence rather than terrorists or terrorist organizations like the 9/11, like Martin Bryan in Tasmania, with taking away our gun laws. There are so many psyops within psyops within psyops that are done by intelligence coups. So I think that's really what this post is about, looking into that. So this talks about Corsini. This talks about, just briefly, again, about Kate's background with being a Goldschmidt and the House of Corsini. The dynasties of Italy. Highest titles: Pontifex Maximus Pope, Prince of Cismano, Papal States, Kingdom of Italy, Yes, that was just and I think from there I found out that the Middletons are actually also not just ordinary. It initially started off with Captain Peter Middleton, who is Kate's grandfather and Michael's father, was a captain, the son of Olivia Lupton, and an English aristocrat. she was very close to King George and his sister Mary. So here she is there leading them to a cricket match. So they're already tied with the royal family. This is her paternal grandfather with Prince Philip. Let me go back to the dates. I haven't confirmed these blood relations and this lineage, but just through Middleton alone, they always seem to avoid talking about the Goldschmidts, about Carol's family. They never go into that history. And there's always bloodlines involved, and there's always Roman bloodlines involved. So that's why I think it's hidden, as much as they hid it away from Diana, and made her a people's princess, as much as they put Kate in jeans. Yeah, so they're saying they're already cousins through the Middletons. They don't really go into any of the wealth or power or prominence of Michael. Just remember, like, Michael was also just a straight out like millionaire for no fucking reason other than a party business, which makes no sense. No Forbes articles on these businesses. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing on these businesses. So Captain Middleton, so Kate's grandfather, 1962, flew the Handley Page Dart Herald on a 2-month tour of South America with Prince Philip. It's interesting that he flew over to South America during that time as well. I've yet to confirm this. Yeah, that was that. I'll get back to that other one. So this here is the Cootes, Middletons, Goldschmidts, British monarchy for centuries. So Toby, one of my amazing researchers on social media, reminds me that John Law, who started the Bank of France, mother was Jean Campbell. Argyll clan, who was a relative of John Campbell, who started Cootes Bank, which has served the British royal family for centuries. John Campbell's partner of the bank was George Middleton, who married John Campbell's daughter. So you see here, this is Cootes Bank website. George Middleton was heavily involved with the affairs. And then down below, the goldsmith practice had declined since the 1720s. So when Middleton died, So it's a goldsmith practice. George Middleton is there. There's also a George Middleton in, I think, 1962, 64 that marries a Carol Goldsmith in the UK. So I find that out. Okay, so now we're kind of up to speed. So then I get Libby has done some more work, and to support my claims that, Meghan Markle was a contractual agreement for the disbandment of the Commonwealth and the global transition of the monarchy and the global transition of Prince Harry and Prince William. And with the disbandment of the monarchy, them still becoming this kind of global diplomacy and them surviving and being successful in a different kind of way. Pretty much the restructure of the monarchy altogether. And she does this by finding out. So she's been doing lately, what you'll see in my videos is she's done the work on the finding out about these kind of narratives that were played out by all these shell production companies that are tied to the palace, that are tied to the royal family. that, talk about Meghan Markle being an asset, being a recruit, being a Crown agent with Kate. So, they don't say Crown agent in those exact terms, but have worked very hard for the Crown together, aligned with one another. And this is 2022 or something. So you can tell that these are all narratives that are playing out, trying to convince the public that all of this has been one big rebranding or constant branding of the royal family. Very controlled, very steered. So she's been doing that, and then she's looked at these social media or Facebook pages of Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, and how it's very, very controlled. And that's a lot of the content that's been, produced this day and age. But she looks into the fact, see, if you look here, it's a public figure Facebook page, so you need direct permissions. Whoever's representing you, if you're not managing, if you're the public figure, if you're not managing the page yourself on Facebook, you need to give him permission, right? And the person I'm guessing there's a person behind this representing Meghan Markle. They have this connection with the YouTube and Instagram page Royal Moments in Time. Now, what she finds out here is that this page was created September the 21st, 2016, which is long before Meghan was even announced as Harry's love interest. Long before. So initially it was called Prince Harry's future princess of his heart. Barbarific. But it just continues on, and then November it was Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So as soon as October 31st happened, where there was the public announcement, they changed it over and over and over. But that was the main point that Libby made. And when I looked into it, I could see that I actually clicked and looked into this Royal Moments in Time, the YouTube channel. So you've got that there. And you can see here that was created August the 27th, 2016. So then you have this exact timing of Meghan Markle being created or launched, shall we say, her identity launched as a royal. This is when she was meant to be back in Toronto filming Suits. So, yeah, this is all happening there. And then what she finds out later is, so we've got the fact that she's already been launched by this representative. But this representative is also representative of the royal family. And I'll show you here. This is Catherine's. It's the same Royal Moments in Time. Public figure. William. Royal Moments in Time. Public figure. King Charles. Royal Moments in Time. This account was created the exact same day as when Meghan Markle's account was created. September 21st, 2016. This King Charles one. So it wasn't King Charles at the time, but it's still the fact that this was done by the same person, the same authorization at the same time. Even Prince Louis and all of the kids, sadly, have them involved. Public figure, royal Moments in Time. That's that same one as I showed you before. So that proves that there's this. Then that was Libby's work as well. That this proves that these are all affiliated and approved together, and that there's a communications team or maybe an external agency or somebody, but they have an affiliation with the royal family and have had approval. This also proves that Meghan Markle is an orchestrated identity. But I've discussed this in length. I've given you much evidence, and this supports the claims, and it's good evidence, so bear that in mind. I think we're up to so we're back to the symbolism part. I'm going to finish this up because I've got other work that I've done today that I want to show you, but that I'll just leave that for one last video. So as I've talked about, I think in my first video, St. George has been pushed through many different names and many different gods, even through Egypt. It goes through history. It goes through back to the Phoenicians or to Babylon. So that's really every part, even Christianity, it goes through everything. It goes through all different stages of our evolution. But these gods and these stories and these mythologies and these prophecies stay the same. So Dennis is an amazing researcher into history. Horus in Roman military uniform lancing at the Seth crocodile, transformed into St. George on his charger spearing the dragon. You can see here it's the same story. I talk about that again. I talk about, if you look into Merlin, the true story of Merlin, that he was actually born half demon. So that can also represent a false prophet. So this was the Slavic sun god. You can see they're the same now ostrich feathers used for the plumage to represent fertility. It goes through the same thing, white horse, spear, it speared a dragon, and then, it goes back to snakes and Marduk. As I said before, the similarities between the glowing, enlightened, or the symbolism of enlightenment, Excalibur, and Lightbringer. Yeah. So that's just symbolism. If you're into it, you don't have to be. You don't have to buy this. It's not me losing it. It's just me connecting these dots. This is discussed a lot as well by researchers. So you can take it or leave it. Oh, yeah. So I think we're up to, yesterday? Okay, so we're up to pretty much, I'm done, which is wonderful. So sorry, guys. This is just consider this a chat and a massive rant. See how, so this surrogacy bullshit's still going on. And I've said a number of times, if the claim of surrogacy was true, why the fuck have we seen 6 different Archies and 6 different Lilibets? Why have we got Stacey Schroeder's kid? Why do we have photoshops? Why are they created out of thin air? Why don't we ever see them? Why don't Meghan and Harry know how to parent? Literally, they don't know anything about being a parent. Why are their ages all messed up and their developments all messed up? Why would you put a child learning how to walk on a cliff face? Why would their first word be crocodile? There's just so many saying they're going to school when they're like 2 or 3 or that sort of stuff. It's just not really makes sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Going back with COVID or being exposed to COVID and self-isolating with a pregnant wife. Okay, well, let's say she's not pregnant. She still had Archie, supposedly, that child in the house. They don't live together. The Montecito's been leased. The marriage is not real. So then how's even the birth certificate real and legitimate? All these things that don't make any sense. It can't be a legitimate birth certificate, no matter what is said, no matter what is explained. So Kafkas is basically the kind of enforcer, the one who reports if the surrogate mum is happy with the deal, with the bargain, with the money, and then if basically when the parent files a request to be on the birth certificate and to legitimise the birth certificate with their names on rather than the surrogate mothers. That is then done. The thing is, also, if the marriage is fake, Harry's name shouldn't be there either, because that would just be Meghan if she was the real mother. Just things don't make sense. They just don't make sense. So anyway, this goes into detail. This was a post done by someone on social media talking. I do think they watch my videos, because this was about after the Lady C, me saying that it was unlawful, what Lady C was claiming regarding the birth certificate. They talk about Kafkas and basically how they're saying that Archie, the reason why Harry said he by the 8th of May that it's been 2 weeks pretty much since Farchi was born, was that they legitimised, they put through the request of the birth certificate, to be changed with names, and then Meghan changed her name. The thing is, I think at the very least, I think it's 30 days before you can request the name change, so it would have to be over a month. It doesn't particularly matter. It's not legitimate. So this is what's been put through. They're saying that, yeah, she went through the process, the legal process of changing the name. So they're trying to legitimise this surrogacy claim, and they're going to keep going with it. So enjoy that bombardment of utter shit that still doesn't make any sense. If they had strong proof and they could really justify and explain everything that's happened so far, maybe I'd go with it. But nothing rings true. And just remember that Lady C also said that she knew that one birth was legitimately natural birth, and that Meghan gave birth to that child. Oh, she also said that she was, what was it? Different bits or a hysterectomy. Again, I can't remember. So that's who these accounts are supporting claims of that don't make any sense, to steer the public and to deceive the public into believing. Again, if there was surrogacy, this is still treason. It's a shock. I will keep reiterating. It's a shock and a disgust that I have with people that are pushing this, trying to trivialize this surrogacy bullshit without ever making, like, they'll go, oh yeah, the British royal family must have known. Oh yeah, they're all part of it. It's fucking treason. It's treason. And you're going to disregard that completely. Why are you disregarding that completely? Like, you've got to really think about why there's this real steered, controlled narrative or change of narrative or play that's happening. You've got to question everything. If they're going to talk about surrogacy, why aren't they talking about treason? Or are they waiting until the Republic campaign says to dismantle the monarchy and the royal family is good to go with saying, yeah, it's time. We've privatised all our assets. We're good to go. Let's dismantle the Commonwealth. Let's dismantle the monarchy. It's all okay. We're protected. We're sick and we're victims. And Harry and William are now successful global statesmen anyway. All is well. So just, bear that all in mind when people talk shit and don't give you the full picture. Because that's the truth of it. If you want to believe that certain thing, then you have to believe the whole, everything, all there is. Why does Archie have 6 faces? Why are there photoshops? Why aren't they calling out the royal family? Why aren't they calling out who would give permission? Why don't they ever research anything heavily on that side of the coin? Or are they just going to go with the psyop of Chinese spy and Andrew? Do you see how the king and Prince Wilhelm are never implicated with anything? That's why I consider it controlled. That's why this is controlled content that you're being delivered and spoon-fed. So just be careful what you take in. So that's my second part. I will do a third part. If you're still with me, man, get a coffee or something. I'll do a second part, but this is actually about the investigation I did today on the Great Reset and the whole construction of that and branding of that and play that was done starting around the three days before the fake birth of Fauci. Thanks, guys.